just do?
We just started the show.
But usually we start the show with the song. Are we just using that thing that you recorded the other day as the opening of the song?
So that's what I was asking. Should we, because what I have to do is...
Cut. No, don't cut. Don't cut.
Okay, no, we're going to leave. We'll put this at the end of the show or something.
So you just want to use that pre-recorded thing that you sent, or you put into the stuff the other day as the opening all the time?
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Great. And then we'll just, okay, and
this?
Back to one. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie Podcast, Unorthodox Wisdom from Unexpected Reality. That's what we deal with here. Happy, what date is today? I've lost all track. I think it's March 114th, if I'm not mistaken. It is the 114th or 15th day of March, but it's way, way, way warmer.
Are we gonna add really funny COVID-19? Let me back that up. How about pandemic jokes? Is that even funny? I don't know. There's some humor. Like March 125th is a pandemic joke, right? So that may have been bad taste. My apologies. I wasn't meaning it to be in bad taste. But I'm now getting 45 days to the gallon.
Jesus.
Which I think that's funny. I mean,
that is funny. See, but those are it's more about it's more about the lockdown, the shutdown, the lack of activity, as opposed to
the quarantine question.
Yes, they are quarantine jests, humorous things, and we have to, otherwise we'll go crazy.
Sorry. And get us back on track, please.
Yeah. Yes, Unorthodox Wisdom from Unexpected Reality, which we are all living in. And Dave, I want you to remind everybody what that means.
Boy, as soon as we figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and that's a little bit of the point, isn't it? This podcast seeks to discuss the aspects of entrepreneurship, business, and the arts, and how the two can come together to make something special, or at least this podcast funny. The show is for entrepreneurs of all kinds, looking to grow and make a move, or start something new, or just get better at your hustle. We hope that by sharing our experiences and the experiences of others, that we can produce nuggets of wisdom. Our last show had so many. Oh, you didn't see it? Well, Stokey, you should tell them what they should be doing.
If you didn't see our last episode or listen to our last episode, and you enjoy our stories thus far and interviews, if you like that, well then, why don't you go to our YouTube channel and click that big red bar that says subscribe. How's that? Or if just listening is your thing, go to Podbean and listen to us anywhere. You download the app and listen to us on Podbean. And we're soon going to be on every single podcast platform in the world because
we're there. We're there.
That's what we want to do.
I've been checking around. We're there. And our audio, so thank you if you're listening to us on audio podcast, that seems to be really doing very well. So thank you very much. You've made a wise choice. You are not looking at our ugly pictures and our goofiness sometimes on the video side of things. So we do appreciate the fact that you are still listening. And we do have that Facebook group where we're trying to get some activity going. So we really need your activity and your posts and your funny perspectives on our interviews and our Stokey stories and Stringer strategy sessions. That's one. And so comment. Let us know how we're doing. We love to hear from you.
614 people now on our Facebook page. Well done. Thank you so much.
Right. It's a good little group. So we do want to thank Side Hustle for the use of their song. We use it throughout the episode. It's called Common Ground. It can be found on their EP called Common Ground. You can find them on sidehustletheband.com. All right. So awesome. little overview. Kind of where are we? I mean, things are running together, and I have to say, the transition to the pre-recorded shows is creating some distortion of time for me.
Sure.
right? So
yeah, I mean, the good thing about it is, luckily, we're both a lot more busy than we were 10 weeks ago, which is fantastic. And the last week here in New York has begun to really feel like New York. We entered phase 2 this week. The restaurants have outdoor seating all up and down 9th Avenue. It feels more normal. People, I think, are acting less like they just got out of prison, so it's not as foolish. It seems more regimented in the way that it's supposed to be. A lot of the office jobs are now open again, with limited amount of people in the buildings. More retail. The phase 2 retail, according to the governor, is where most of our economy is, which is great. That's a great thing. So we'll see how that happens. And also, this past Friday was the last of our governor's morning press conferences. He'd been doing it for 111 days, and he did it by himself. And he gave everybody the day off, and it was really quite moving to see how we had come in 111 days. He kind of did a recap of the whole thing, and it was incredibly moving.
Nice.
And to find out that we are last in the country right now in percentages of infections.
You made a prediction, and we can find the episode, we can find the clip if we had to, but you made a prediction that I think was extremely on point, and that was, it's going to take a while for New York to come out of it. And when we do, we will be in better shape than everybody else going forward. Matt Stokey, I think that is exactly correct, because we're seeing double-digit increases, sometimes triple-digit increases across the South, Midwest,
California,
states that did have a lockdown and didn't quite take it so strenuous as New York did. South Carolina seeing proliferation of cases, and it's hitting close to home. I mean, we've got a scare in our company. We've got somebody who tested positive and is now on quarantine. So I think, and what I'm starting to see also is a lot more people in South Carolina, in Rock Hill, with masks.
Thank God.
I went to the grocery store today, and I'm going to say 50% had masks.
And that's an uptick, right?
That's a huge an increase. I mean, usually maybe 25%, maybe less, had masks on. Today, 50% had masks on.
Okay.
All the employees had masks on.
Okay.
I had a mask on. So Michelle had a mask on. So, I think your prediction that New York is going to emerge and be on a great path because, well, one, you did have a lot of infections. Two,
25,000 deaths.
And it's resonating amongst your community to take it very seriously, to continue to be vigilant about it. So,
well, and also since
you're right,
since we started to reopen, which has been a couple of weeks now, and we had the protests here, we had the outpouring of people going to bars for the last 3 weekends, and everybody was kind of up in arms about what was going to happen when we started seeing the testing. Turns out we haven't seen anything, which is lovely. That's amazing. That nothing has spiked in New York. So I don't know exactly what all the reasons are, but I think people here are going to keep doing what we're doing. And I feel as though the rest of the country now is going to get on board, even if a little bit late. It seems like now that it is starting to infiltrate a lot of the places that maybe had a hesitancy to really buy into the hoopla. And I don't blame them for that. I really don't. I don't blame the other parts of the country for going, look, we don't have any infections. What is the problem? I don't blame them for that. It was a difficult thing. We had no choice here.
Right.
No choice.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a good feeling right now to be opening up and to so far see that it's not creating any kind of even small second wave or uptick. And it also feels good for me. In the last week, I've gotten a couple of requests to start shooting headshots again. I've done I taught an online class on Monday, and going to start the summer semester with a school up in Schenectady. So things are starting to feel like they're moving again. We're not even close, but they're moving again. So it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to look on my whiteboard and not have like clean the shelves, throw out old food. Just like have things like, oh, I actually have like 2 photo shoots in the next 2 days, and then helping out with a video project. It feels like, okay, things are getting there. So it's a better place to be. And to quote a Harry Chapin song title, So Vague, look it up. One of the best songs ever. Better place to be. So here we are. And it feels good. It feels good to be busy. It feels good that a couple nights this past week, I've had to set an alarm.
What's that?
I don't like it.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. That's where we are in New York, and it feels good. It also feels like it's been over 90 degrees for 3 days, and for the next 4 days. So that's lovely.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's weather's good here. So hey, do you want to kick us off with a Stokey story, or you want me to start with the Stringer strategy session?
I just gabbed. You go.
All right.
About where we are in New York. Tell us your Stringers. I want to hear this one.
All right. This is one that I really enjoy talking about, because I think that this is one of the first things that any entrepreneur really needs to wrestle to the ground and decide. One is not better than the other. I can tell you that I prefer one over the other. And I think, okay, I'm going to be very judgmental in this next words out of my mouth. I think less of a person if they do one versus the other. But hey, to each his own. And this is the difference between a company and a lifestyle business. So company is a organization that is built around employees. Those employees also include founders and owners, maybe a board of directors, and they build a product, or they have a product, they have a service, and the whole focus of the organization is the customers and the service that they provide, right? So maybe call it a little more corporate, but you could have a fun company. Ultimately, the company funds itself to support the entire organization, not the business owner, right?
Okay.
A lifestyle business is a business that only supports the lifestyle of the owner or the shareholders. It could be more than one owner.
Okay.
And here are some things that I see in a lifestyle business. Number one, you write off everything. Okay. Now, I'm not opposed to writing off things that are business expenses, but I don't write off my watches, and I don't write off my cars, and I don't write off my house as part of my business, because it's not part of the business, right? So now let's get technical. I own a studio and I live in that studio. Do I write that off as a business expense? Yes. That doesn't mean it's a lifestyle business, but you're taking advantage of opportunities to save you money and capital and reduce your overall tax consequence, which any company should try to do, right? You don't want to pay more taxes than you have to. But the whole intent of having that studio and living in that studio and working in that studio isn't because you want to live and work there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So lifestyle businesses are businesses that solely focus on income that then flows straight into the owner's pocket. And then the owner goes and buys a boat and writes off, and goes and buys, the most fancy car, or leases a fancy car and writes it off. And to me, that's a horrible way to create a business. And I would be willing to bet that if you looked at businesses across time, those companies, even small businesses that started off, that were companies and focused on supporting the employees, supporting the customers, providing a good service to the customers, and the intent wasn't to support the lifestyle of the owner, fare far better than businesses where the owner feels like the business. This is another way to look at it. Is the business account your account to write groceries out of? Right? I've asked some entrepreneurs that before, and they're like, well, what do you mean by groceries? I mean, literally going to Publix, swiping the company card, and you just bought groceries on the company. Justify that to me. Well, it's all my money anyway, isn't it? Ha, gotcha. Right? So it's almost like it's a way to think about a company rather than really some tangible things. If you think your company is your checkbook, it's time to really reevaluate whether you're going to be a successful business owner. And the reason why is because if you're so willing to go swipe your card at the grocery store and take your valuable cash out of your company to buy groceries for you, right? Then you're willing to risk that business cash anywhere. And you're looking at me like you're confused, but I want to make sure, does that make sense? So I think it's very important that if you are going to go down the entrepreneurial journey, that the number one thing that you create in your mind is this wall of separation. The company is over here. What that company pays you is something you decide. The company writes you a check, it goes into your personal bank account, and you go buy groceries, right? Not that company bank account is my account that I can go draw on anytime I need to make a house payment or buy groceries. And I'm using that as kind of like fundamental stuff.
Sure.
Most of the time it's stupid shit like, well, of course I need a fancy watch because, I'm the business owner. I got to look good. Or, yeah, I needed an $8,000 suit because, I'm the owner. And that's absolutely a business expense. Okay.
No, I'm not looking at you confused. I'm looking at how your view of the two things applies to someone in my position, where basically from the jump in my life, I've been an independent contractor, sole proprietor, freelancer, 1099. Throughout the years before the Trump administration changed the tax laws again, which helps some people and doesn't help others. And it goes back and forth between the two parties and how to tax. And you just kind of adjust. I had never incorporated before Trump took over, because for the previous administrations, being an actor, being an independent contractor, we could write off everything, to a certain extent, to a certain percentage. You can write off your bills, you can write off your house, to a certain percentage, and you get a good tax person, and then you get a big tax refund. Right. I incorporated in 2017, and because of the tax laws right now, which benefit corporations really well, I couldn't believe the difference in the amount of money. Right. What that did was it took, because when they changed the tax laws, it took away all the itemized deductions from individual contractors, and it was standard deductions across the board. That screws over people like performers, independent contractors, because all of our tax benefits came from writing off everything. Right. Which is a different thing. I want to make sure that there's a clear distinction between what you're talking about and what I'm talking about when it comes to business expenses. Corporate expenses. Yeah, and those weren't. That was my question. It wasn't about that. That's a whole different thing. That's not somebody starting a company. That's being an independent contractor my entire life. When I incorporated, I always have to remember that I didn't incorporate my photography business. I didn't incorporate my acting business. I did not incorporate my teaching or corporate training business. I incorporated myself. I turned myself into an S corp, a single person corporation, so that yes, every penny that I spend on the company is me. It's 100% me. Right. So that was in looking at what you were just saying. I was like, okay, there is a difference. My corporation is me. It's not my company. Yes, 100%. And so the another very, very clear distinction about what you were talking about is that you will have things in your company, which is your S corp, that you can use for your business, like the top of the line camera. If you can afford it, Yeah.
Absolutely afford it because you'll make your money back, so on and so forth. That's fine. If you buy something that is outside the sphere, and let's just use a nice watch, for example, right? You bought a new watch that's $7,000 watch, and you purchased it as an asset of the company has no value, no use of that. And I think maybe that's how you're helping me kind of further define it. If you buy something for the company that has no value to the company in true value, then then you're living a lifestyle through your business. And I think it's one of the worst things you could do. I've run into companies where the house was owned by the business.
Yeah.
Right? The mortgage is literally in the name of the business.
Yeah.
Now, it's a clever, kind of a shitty way to do that, because what you're doing is if the company goes through any kind of financial trouble, guess what asset what asset is owned, right? So not only are you setting yourself up for a liability potentially because, hey, you screw up over here, suddenly your company has a liability of $1 million. Guess what? So is your house gone, right?
Yeah.
Stupid. So anyway.
No, it makes great sense. And actually that's a really cool examination of the difference between the company that you own and me as an independent contractor who is incorporated. That's yeah. I think that was you were telling me this was going to be interesting. It is very interesting, and it's probably something we can continue to explore. I would like that because there are a lot of people in my world who would have the same questions that I just had for you. So that's something I think that's something we should hang on to and kind of revisit that idea. I think it was great.
Cool.
Okay, see you, everybody. Take care. What do you want? A story? You want a story? You want a Stokey story?
Come on, we're ready. We're ready. Stokey story.
Okay. So when I was a kid, I followed my brother and his friend Rico around all the time because they were older and they were fun and they were allowed to have BB guns before anybody else was. And they were 3 years older than me. My only defense was that I was faster than them, so I could punch them in the leg and then run real fast if I was being a jerky little brother. So one summer, my brother got a rifle BB gun, and it was good fun. And it was one of those ones you could pump a whole bunch of times. And like you picked off a coffee can from across the way, that thing went flying. And so I was just, it was awesome because I had his old single pump little gun that if you put it on your arm, it wasn't even going to make a dent. It was like you could shoot a piece of paper and you'd be like, oh my God, it almost went through. So there was one day.
That was a solid dent.
It was a solid crease in the paper. It was great. But for me, it was actually probably exactly the amount of power that I should have been allowed to wield. And this is the point of the story. So I was following Greg and Rico around through all the we had woods across from our house, all around our house. We lived in a cul-de-sac. There were creeks, and it was just fantastic. And we played cops and robbers and army in the woods and all kinds of stuff. It was great. And so one day I'm following through the woods, and I keep begging my brother, just let me shoot it once. Come on, we're in the woods. What am I going to do? I'm not going to hurt anything. And I'm just like, and they're picking off, trying to pick off little badgers. Not that we had badgers in the woods. I don't know, whatever it was. Like some sort of little something. So we came down through the woods onto the street below ours. We lived a lot of hills in western Pennsylvania below ours, and there was a long row of houses on a kind of a main street, but we'd come out of the woods, and there's my brother with his pump action BB gun. And we're just like, he's pinging like stop signs from like 50 feet away. And I was like, all right, this is really, really cool. I was like, give me one chance. Like, just let me shoot something. So I get it. And he was like, I'm only going to pump it like 5 times. I was like, okay, awesome. Okay, awesome. And there's a mailbox about 30 feet away. And he was like, okay, hit that mailbox because you can't hit it. You can't hurt a steel mailbox. And I was like, no. So I was like, Ralphie, full on Ralphie.
I was just gonna say, you're not gonna hit an icicle, are you?
Which I actually have another Ralphie-esque story to tell. That's another Stokey story. So I haul off and I bat this thing, and it has a recoil. I was probably 11, and from the time I was about 12, I was 4'8", 81 pounds, tiny. Between 7th and 8th grade, I was 5'11", 155. So then it was just like, it was crazy, which is basically what I am now, plus 40 pounds. So he was like, that was awesome, man. And I was like, let me shoot one more thing. And Rico, his friend, who's still a good friend of the family's, he said, dude, that's John Naw's car. John Naw was one of the guys in the neighborhood who was kind of one of the bad kids. He was like the older kid. He was kind of a delinquent, but sweetheart of a guy. He just always was in trouble. And we also knew that he had a stashed bag of Playboys in the woods. So we were like, John Naw was like everybody's hero. We were like, John Naw's Playboys. So John Naw's Volkswagen Rabbit was parked about 100 feet away. And Rico's like, there's no way you can hit his car. There's no way. And I was like, I took dead aim. Boom. And you heard a tick, and then you just saw, a Volkswagen Rabbit, like kind of the back that was on a slant.
I knew this. Yep.
It hit it, and it just went. It looked like it just shook. We were like, that looked like you hit that thing, man. That back window just shook. And we were like, I had the gun to my brother, and we start walking really slow up towards it. And as we got closer, it was just gray. It was gray, and we were like, you couldn't see through it anymore. And and the whole thing was spider webbed. The entire thing just went, just spider webbed. And there's a hole right. I nailed that mofo right in the middle. It was just like,
oh my God.
Now, to make things worse, on those old cars, they had that filament in them in the back that was the defroster.
Yes. Yeah.
That little thing that went through it was the rear window defroster. And we panicked, ran back up through the woods. I ran into my basement, went down into my hideaway hockey net thing that I had, and just waited, hopefully I was going to wait for 3 or 4 years until the heat was off. And at about 5:30, my dad comes home, and he pulls up to the front of our house, and right behind him is another car, and it was John Naw's dad. And they were just standing outside having a conversation, and I was like, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. And apparently there were several witnesses to
eyewitnesses.
And they knew that it was me, and I couldn't even pass it off. Greg and Rico made me do it. They would throw me right under the bus and be like, that dumbass pumped that thing 12 times. And so it just shattered the whole back window. And they were just talking. I see them shake hands, and I'm just sitting inside the front window of our house. I'm just I'm about to die. This is it. That's the end. That's the last thing I did. And my dad comes in, doesn't get angry, doesn't say a word, just goes over to his desk to where he knows that our bank account books are. Remember those old days you had bank books?
Oh, of course.
The bank, they'd deposit, they'd stamp it, tell you what your new balance was in 1981 or 82, whatever it was.
Yep.
And he said, so tomorrow the first thing we have to do is we're going down to First Federal Bank, and you have to withdraw $132.70 because that's what it's going to take to fix John's window on his Volkswagen Rabbit. Oh. And I want you to do it. I'm not taking it out for you. I'm going to take you down there because this is what's called consequences. And I was like, nice. Okay, I'm not getting whooped. I'm not getting my ass beat. I'm not no. But when you go down there and you take out 132 out of the $141 that you saved in the last year, you'll see how bad it feels to have consequences. And I'm still thinking I'm a kid. You didn't want to be spanked. You didn't want to be grounded. He's like, I'm not doing that. He said, we're just going to go down. And then when they stamp your little book and they hand it back to you, and there are $7 back after you mowed all those lawns and delivered all those newspapers and shoveled all those driveways, that's going to be your entire lesson. And that's exactly what happened. And I was just at first you think like Ralphie, when he was just kids didn't care. They'd throw the kids right under the other friends right under the bus. I don't care, but It hurt. It was the first time I learned about consequences. And I was like, okay. I think another word I learned was discretion. Don't follow the big kids around and try to impress them. Yeah.
Awesome. Did you looking back now, the lesson means more than if you probably got your ass beat.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
yeah. I mean, there's good times to get your ass beat, but that sounds like the perfect time to not
Yeah, oh, it was.
and
It was.
just
It was.
live
It
with
was.
the consequences.
It was amazing lesson teaching diplomacy on my dad's part. I mean, my parents were not pugilists at all. We didn't get beat all the time. When we needed it, my mom had the spoon. The spoon hurt like hell. The wooden spoon hurt like hell on the back of the leg. And my dad.
We'll talk about Jenny's paddle one day. We'll talk about Jenny's paddle.
Those of us of a certain generation, we remember what it was like to get put over a knee and get the shit spanked out of you. And it was like, okay, it did teach you a lesson. You thought again the next time you did it.
Message received. Not doing it again.
100%. And I think there were very important lessons to learn. But I think also if unfortunately you're part of one of those situations where you have just a violent father or something that just smacks you around, then it just doesn't mean anything. No, my dad would clock us when he needed to clock us. When we deserved it, we got it. But this particular day, he was like, no. This is
you're gonna feel that monetary hurt.
This is real life. This is real life. This is not you got to spank and now you go put ice on your bum and then you fall asleep crying. No. But tomorrow when you get that.
One last question, and then we will move to our break. Did you feel more grown up after that? Or did that ever occur to you?
I remember feeling like that's my first lesson about what happens to grown-ups. Why don't grown-ups cry? Why don't grown-ups spank each other? They don't do that. Oh, this is what they do. Well, some grown-ups spank each other, but for fun. I'm saying that you never saw grown-ups throwing tantrums. If something like that happened, they just had to pay for it. And it was just like, that feeling of, oh, God, that's a whole different kind of pain. Just like, oh, that's my first indoctrination into grown-upping. I was like, that's meh. Go back to being a kid. That's
just not shooting with BB guns.
God, I wish I had that bank book. I'm sure it has to be somewhere. My first federal of Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh. I forget what it was.
And that's pretty good. I couldn't save money. I could not save money to save my life. If I got $5, it was in a video game as fast as I could feed in there and play as long as I could play. I didn't really collect. I was lucky. I didn't really collect anything. And so my mom was so good that if we had a hobby, she would encourage it. And I like to build models. And so I didn't have to pay all of my mom would split it with me. She'd say, okay, if we went to Kmart or we went to somewhere and I wanted to get a new model, she'd be like, okay, you pay for half of it and I'll pay for half of it. And if we were into things like music and books, my mom had no problem taking us into B. Dalton's or, any of those book places or National Record Mart. Like she encouraged those kind of hobbies. So it wasn't like I had to save up for the next Ozzy Osbourne or Rat album, even though I did. And then also we had a limit on how long we stayed at the arcade. They had no problem with us in the arcade, but you're not going to stay in there for 6 hours. My dad also was addicted to Miss Pac-Man. So he would take us. He was addicted to Miss Pac-Man. So we could save money. We always worked. My brother and I shared a paper route. I shoveled lawns or I shoveled snow. I mowed lawns. I mean, it was what we did. I had no problem with it. It was fun. But $132 right down the old toilet because of John Naw's back windshield. It was 78 Rabbit. Still a hell of a shot. It was
a great shot. I don't think I ever fired a gun in any way, shape, or form since. None.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Great story. We are going to take a break now and get a word from our sponsors, and we will be back in just a moment.
Hi, don't be afraid. It's just me, David Stringer behind the scenes. Mad scientist? No, just bedhead, before all of the magic happens. And like all entrepreneurs who are relentless, we need our energy, and mine is Knowledge Perk Coffee. I love their burn rate because it helps me power through my morning until second breakfast.
What, you don't eat 2 breakfasts?
Knowledge Perk can ship anywhere in the world, and you can subscribe and have it delivered as often as you like. And not only will you be getting the best coffee you've ever tasted, you'll also be supporting a company that supports the community. We at Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie are proud to have Knowledge Perk as our sponsor, and so we have a special offer for you. If you subscribe to our YouTube page or our audio podcast, we'll send you a special #TPFC discount code. To get our code, post a screenshot of your subscription in our Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie Facebook group, and we will DM you the code.
Thanks for watching, and now back to the show. And we are back.
Hello.
From commercial break, and we are joined by Anton Laplume of Side Hustle. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here, guys.
So you're here in person to spend the weekend at Casa Stringer to work on the EP release that will happen, sounds like 2021. So we'll talk about that. First off, let's just start at the top. How has this pandemic affected you and the band, and what's been your general experience?
Well, it's affected us in the sense that we can't work right now. So all the bars and clubs are shut down. We're not able to work. For a band like us that's very DIY, we are predominantly relying on live shows as our income. So that has been the biggest, I think, negative impact that it's had on our ability to make money.
And were you able to take advantage of any of the CARES Act stuff, any of the, not the payroll protection, any of the other programs out there?
No, I really didn't do a whole lot of research as what my options were as being in a band. I know other people that explored some of those options and it yielded no results for them. So I did get a stimulus check, obviously, like most people did, I think. And I've been told I'm able to collect unemployment. I've not been able to make that happen for myself. I've been rejected twice, which is insane. But I don't know what I qualify for at this point, I guess.
Yeah. Talk about, you're very connected into the scene in Jacksonville. Talk a little bit about the other musicians that you know, and are they, a lot of them in the same boat that you're in?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are in the same boat. I can't speak to everybody. I know people that have been able to get unemployment and they're doing just fine. So it's a mixed bag. I don't know what affairs you have to have in order. I keep pretty good financial records. I think I'm filling out all the information correctly. I don't know what would stop me from getting unemployment. I just think there's a glitch. Florida is not set up to have this many people relying on unemployment. So I think the state is just trying to figure out how to manage all these numbers, you know. Mm-hmm. And some of us are getting left behind, which is just, it's going to happen, unfortunately.
I just realized something, Stokey, and you could tell me if we should start over real quick. I did not introduce him at all.
Yeah, you did.
But I did. I wrote this very nice introduction. What do you think?
Let's roll.
Okay. Well, then edit that out.
Oh no, then let's start over because it's a pain in the ass.
Edit.
Yeah, to cut those things out in the middle, just because they're such huge files. Let's start over. It's 3 minutes. We can start over.
Poop. My apologies. I was running in it. Okay, here we go. 3. And we are back.
Here we are.
We are joined by Anton Laplume of the Anton Laplume Band. Anton is originally from South Florida, where he is a singer-songwriter, and got his big start when he was he emerged from the blues scene, where he was picked up by a band, the Rockin Jake.
Well, I have to cut you off real quick because you introduced it as Anton Laplume Band and not Side Hustle.
Yeah, we're hungover.
Slipping, David, slipping.
Take 4.
All right. And welcome back. It's kind of weird. It's like we never left. So welcome back to the show, and let's welcome Anton Laplume of Side Hustle.
That's right.
I'm yelling because this is like our 4th take, and but thankfully we're not live. Otherwise, this would be a train wreck. So I would like to introduce Anton Laplume. He is a singer-songwriter from South Florida. Got his big break when he was picked up as a guitarist in the Rockin Jake Band. and where he toured the country up into Canada as well, according to your bio. And currently, Anton resides in Jacksonville, Florida, where he is the leader of the band for Side Hustle. And he's here today to talk to us about the side hustle of being in a band and during these times, and how he's had to pivot and all of those kind of good topics that we're going to get into. So, Anton, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be
You guys
here.
are awesome, by the way. Side hustle, good Lord.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. We have a good time.
So let's talk about how this pandemic has affected you and affected the band. So can you kind of walk us through what the effects have been?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really we haven't been able to make any money. We're predominantly most of our income is coming from gigging at the moment. So that has been a big problem for us, especially with everything we have going on, which I guess we'll get to later on, but needing big budgets to work with when we have no revenue coming in. We're under timelines and restraints and all the stuff that we have to kind of adhere to. So it's been pretty stressful in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Sure.
And what are the things that you've tried to do to sort of manage through this time? Because it seems like you're in a boat with many other musicians that are struggling through this time. What are the things that you've tried to do to manage?
Well, staying creative has definitely been an aspect of that. Practicing a lot more than I normally would be, trying to write more new creative endeavors like the podcast and all that stuff that I'm sure we'll get into, and make sure the band is still practicing and communicating and not losing, not losing steam. We had a lot of steam kind of building up before, and this kind of just put a halt to everything. So trying to keep morale up and not only creatively in writing and all that stuff, but also how do we finance our future endeavors when we're not able to make money through our regular outlets, so.
Have you been able to take advantage of any of the, the stimulus or the CARES Act or any of those things?
Got a stimulus check. Didn't really do a whole lot of research on what my other options were, but I know other people that did and that did their research and tried to apply for the CARES Act and stuff like that. And a lot of it didn't work out for them, but unemployment has been a saving grace for a lot of people. It's not been that for me either. So it's just been a very weird few months. I'm lucky to have a good support system, friends and family that have been kind of pitching in to help me get through for sure.
And how would you say your experience is right now, typical or atypical of the other musicians that you know of in Jacksonville?
It's hard to say because people aren't always so open about it, but I'd say there's a good amount of people that are in my position right now. They're just waiting for a check to come in. But there's also a good amount of people that are getting by with checks and everything. So I don't know. It's hard to really say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What have been some of the silver linings in all of this? You talked about on your podcast that there's been some good things that have come about from this. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, well, staying creative has definitely been something that's been a big thing. So having the time to really to get creative and write new music and practice. And one of the biggest things we did was start the podcast, Bottom of the Bill, which, if you're not familiar with the terminology, when you're looking at a festival lineup or like a concert series, you'll see the bands in really small font at the bottom. That means you're at the bottom of the bill. And the podcast is very much geared towards artists that are at that stage in their career. And the things that I've learned in dealing with agents and managers and promoters and, just all that shit. And the podcast is just like kind of there to help people learn and navigate this crazy. We adhere to all the same guidelines that the pop artists have to adhere to as far as like album cycles, when we release music, how we release it, the marketing strategies and all that stuff. But we deal with a fraction of the budgets. Mm-hmm. And we have to get very creative in how we obtain those funds. So I'd like to impart the knowledge that I've learned to other people, as well as get people on that might be able to impart some knowledge onto us.
Well, and a lot of those bands, they have a different type of support structure, whereas bands where you're at in the emerging, I call them emerging bands, you don't have that support structure. That support structure is you.
Right.
And so talk a little bit about the struggles of that, because it's very much a DIY type of, did I say that right?
DIY.
DIY.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm dyslexic.
It's all good.
So yeah. So, I mean, talk a little bit about how that, the things that you have to do that, maybe some other, when you're at a different level, it's done for you kind of thing.
Yeah, well, crowdfunding is a big thing that nobody really wants to do because we all feel kind of guilty for getting crowdfunded. But at the same time, if we have to figure out ways that we can return the favor for people that do support us in that way. You and I have talked about reaching out to kind of like angel investors and people that you can kind of, develop a relationship with that see the bigger picture and structure a business model that makes sure they get their money back and that also enables you to pursue your endeavors in a timely fashion. So I don't know. It's just about really when you're at the stage, the emerging bands, I like how you worded that, with the emerging artists, it's like you have to get creative in your business model the same way you have to be creative with your music. So it gets to be pretty interesting when you start to really test the bounds of your creativity under the confines that you're in as a DIY artist, I guess.
What do you think are some of the lasting effects of the music business from this?
I don't know. It's so hard to speculate. I think we're going to see, I think streaming is going to advance. I think the technology is going to get better and better. And I think we're going to see a lot of new ways for bands to capitalize on that. And the experience is going to be better for people at home. This whole pandemic just kind of really, I think, created this sense of urgency. Like we can't all rely on this on live performances anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people, even when you do have label support and when you're touring, playing theaters and even to the arena stages and bigger festivals, I think that because of the way record deals are structured and because records aren't selling the way they were, even those artists are still really relying on the live performance aspect. And whereas before they had so much income coming in from record sales and online merch sales and stuff, so they're still right now relying a lot on live performance. And we're all trying to figure out, okay, what's the next move here? And I think streaming is going to be one of those things. I don't know how it's going to change just yet. I mean, I have my theories, but I don't want to do too much speculating on air. But I think we're going to see a huge advancement in streaming. That's going to be a big way that artists are going to start making money, on the live shows.
It does seem like it's going to be harder for the larger venues to open up anytime soon. So I think it's all too relative. In addition to, it's relative in the same way it's relative to you that you are having limited venues to open up right now. Those, bigger, larger acts who draw, several thousand people sometimes to an arena, it's going to be a while before they're playing an arena.
Yeah, definitely.
And so they're still going to struggle as much as you guys are going to struggle.
Yeah, and it's like it's not even that they won't be able to. It's just that with the limited capacity, the way it's going to be for a little while, I think, is that it's just not going to be worth it for them to put the show on. Mm-hmm. And Matt, maybe you experienced this working on Broadway and everything, and just the theaters in general. The overhead costs, the overhead costs on just putting on a show like that, paying the staff and running the venue space and the merch people that run all that stuff. It's like the production teams, like all that stuff. Just to put the show on is so expensive. If you can't sell the show out a couple of days in a row, especially at like an arena or something, it's almost not even worth it to do the show at all.
No, we're all going to be in the same boat. I mean, anything that requires live audiences for revenue. I mean, big league sports are different because you can sell it on TV, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be the last thing that's going to keep Broadway specifically from reopening, which is going to be, yeah, we can figure out ways to do it safely. We can figure out ways to clean the theaters. We can limit the amount of performances per week, which also cuts down on revenue. Make it as safe as possible. But who's going to come see it? It's going to be very difficult to get people into Midtown Manhattan anytime soon. And B, if you start saying, okay, we're going to sell every other seat, the average Broadway show's weekly nut is somewhere around 550 to 600,000. That's the average. Some of them, like the Lion King, is almost $1 million. Chicago is 260,000 because it has one set, no costumes, whatever. But if your average weekly running costs are between 550 and 6, where are you going to get that money from? It all comes from ticket sales. All of it. And if you have an average week where you sell 80% of the seats, you break even.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make money.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's just having an average week, where you look at your nut and you look at your weekly gross and you say, just made it. And that's on 80% at, let's say, 80% of top ticket sales. I mean, that's the other thing is that, sure, you can have two similar theaters that have 1,400 seats, but the reason why Hamilton is making $3 million a week is because their average ticket sale is $400. So, it's just not going to happen to other shows. Hamilton can afford to play to 30% in their theater. Wow. And they'll be one of the first shows to reopen because of the way they sell tickets. They'll be able to break even. So yeah, all of our money is on revenue, on ticket revenue, which is also unlike, and we talked about this with Kara a little bit. Streaming, in my opinion, especially on the Broadway level, is incredibly dangerous. It sets a very, very shaky precedent moving forward for broadcasting theater live. I also don't even know how much money you'd make on it. I mean, honestly, people are like, if you broadcast Wicked every night, everybody in the country would watch it. Would they? I mean,
there's ways I think that you can go about it that would make sense. I think the key to keep it is for the artist to keep it in house. You know what I mean? Like what sets the dangerous precedent is allowing the venue to hold that streaming resource for you, or allowing like a third party to come in, because then what happens is, first off, they split that revenue with you, and who knows, that split will probably be somewhere around an 80-20 split because their initial cost of production team and all that stuff, not to mention hosting the stream and everything, putting it behind a paywall. So I think if in that model, I would agree with you. And there's also all kinds of data that gets collected that allows them to leverage a scenario even more than an artist doesn't get access to, because they don't want you to have access to the data, because then that gives you the leverage in the scenario, right? So if you keep the streaming services in-house and put it through a paywall that's on your terms and your platform, then I believe that it's actually not a terrible thing. I can't speak to how it works on Broadway, or in the theater on that level, but I know for us in my side of the industry, I think it makes sense to view that as a viable option especially for lost revenue on ticket sales. If I do a show somewhere, let's say like Asheville, North Carolina, I can maybe have 50% or 50% capacity in that room, but then because that's what the limitation is, and lose out on all this potential revenue. If I put the live stream through a paywall, I can have people in Asheville or anywhere else in the country, pay the $5-10 for the stream, and then we just made up all that lost revenue. And they still have an incentive to come see your show, because it's not quite the live experience. So you're also not paying as much for it, and they'll still come and see you and pay the regular price for the show and buy your merchandise and do all that stuff.
Yeah, we talked about it with Kara a little bit, and one of the big problems on Broadway is you have about 8 different unions that are involved too.
Right.
So it's going to be very, very difficult. And like you said, you made a great point about these production teams. Everybody's saying, well, just broadcast Broadway. Who's going to pay for that? Like, if you're talking about doing it well, 3 or 4 cameras, the amount of bandwidth that you have to pay for, especially if you're like, we want to make it open to everybody. It's going to be another expense that who knows how much that's going to cost. The idea that just like, well, just broadcast it every night and let people pay $49.99 to see Hamilton. Well, what do you think your profit margin is going to be? Are you doing that just to keep it relevant, just to, and what are we going to do about salaries? What are we going to do about backstage salaries? There's so many other questions that I don't see any model for Broadway specifically. Like, theaters around the country are going to figure out ways to do it. They're going
Yeah.
to do it remotely. They're going to do outdoor venues, things like that. But for these 41 theaters, I don't foresee any way for it to happen until there's either knock it out of the park treatment or a vaccine. If they give really good drugs, if they make really good drugs that make this just kind of a nuisance as opposed to a death sentence, it's going to make people come back and they're going to go, oh, okay, well, that means I'll just be sick for a few days and it's fantastic and we don't all die.
Right.
Otherwise, there's too many other questions. Look what's happening with baseball right now. You know, it's like, yes, they're still haggling over money, but now, how many in the last couple of days? How many training camps have we seen where they're like, oh, they've got 7 corona cases? You know, it's happened in soccer, it's happened in hockey, it's happening everywhere. So now they have to shut it down. They just shut down the Major League Baseball, the spring trainings in Florida and in Arizona. They shut them down because they have to go in and clean the whole thing over. What happens if that happens in a Broadway show? What if you're up and running and then half your cast gets whacked with the virus and everybody in backstage is like, I'm not coming to work. You know, so there's no real viable way to do it on our side. Talking to you and talking to Kara, I think the idea is kick ass, because we were saying in a venue like hers, if she broadcasts like you just playing solo on a Friday night, people want to see you play. If I don't want to go to her club, but I can pay $29.99 and have it playing on a big ass TV while I'm having my friends over on my back porch, then you have that experience.
Exactly.
I think it's a great business model, and it could make you guys some money, and at least obviously keep you and everybody's in their vision.
Exactly. And just like the content that you get in the long run from that. I mean, it's just, to me, on this side of it, I don't see the downside of
Right.
I don't see how streaming doesn't become a permanent fixture in the business model of every band moving forward. You know.
Yeah. So let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Talk about your new EP and what one of the reasons that we've enjoyed working together all these years, 3 years now, is because you have a very business oriented mind. And so I think it's important for this show to really highlight how you are approaching your music as an enterprise. You're constantly thinking of ways to create an enterprise out of your music, which I think is lost on many musicians, especially emerging musicians, because they think, well, if I just write a great song, if I just play enough, if I just get somebody to see me, it'll take off.
Right. And
we all know that that's not reality anywhere, right?
Right.
In any business, right? You have to build. So, so take me through some of those things of that you think about when it comes to building your band, not as a band. There's the music part of it, but then there's the enterprise, the business part of it.
Yeah, well, I think people have to really focus on, and again, one of the things that this pandemic has really shown us is diversifying your revenue streams. You know, you can't just be focusing on live shows, and in order to really maximize those like that revenue, you want to try and do everything, keep everything as in-house as possible. So I think that becoming a self-reliant band in every aspect of that, whether it's starting your own label and kind of developing a structure around that, or using the skill set that you've learned in producing your own band, and offering that as some kind of a function for other bands down the line. Just figure out a way to
So, while we're waiting for Anton and Dave to come back, I'll tell you a story. So there I am. It's probably 1985, 84 maybe. And we're in Jenny Passero's aunt's basement. And what we would do on Friday evenings is we'd have parties. We'd have boy and girl parties. We were 12, 13. And this is where we discovered kissing. It was super fun. And so we'd have our baseball practice. We'd all go over to Jenny's aunt's place. It was very exciting. And we'd listen to the hits of the day, Shadows of the Night by one Patricia Benatar, and Heaven by Canadian superstar Bryan Adams, who eventually would delve into big-time musical theater to a modicum of success. Probably had some Bruce Springsteen in there, probably maybe some Heart. And what we would do is we'd split up the different sides of the room. The boys would be over there, the girls would be over there, and we would eat our pretzels, get all hopped up on RC Cola. And then about every 20 to 30 minutes, somebody would go over to the light switch on the wood-paneled wall, and we'd all pair off, and we would turn the light out, and we'd all start kissing, is what we would do. So then there'd be very soft kissing sounds, and then some smart aleck would turn the lights back on, and we'd all get caught kissing, and then it would be all embarrassing, and then we'd all go back to our sides of the room. The boys would go back over here, the girls would go back over there, we'd go back to our pretzels, they'd go back to talking, they'd go outside from the outside patio, and then we'd talk about baseball and stuff like that, and we'd keep pounding our RC Cola, and then eventually about 20 minutes later, we'd all pair off again, find the person you wanted to make out with, somebody go 1, 2, 3, turn the lights out. Patricia Benatar is still singing about Running with the Shadows of the Night. Kiss, 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 kiss. Some smart aleck turn the lights back on. Everybody would scurry back to their corners. And this would continue for about 2 to 3 hours. And that was our introduction to kissing. Hey, you guys are back.
So did it continue recording? I guess it continued recording.
Oh, did it ever?
Yeah.
Told some wonderful stories.
Can't wait to see what you were talking about while we were gone. Yes, we had internet issues.
It happens. It happens. I picked up the ball. I ran with it.
Apparently you did. And it sounds like an impromptu Stokey story in the middle of our interview.
Sometimes it's the best way to go about it.
This is gonna be our highest selling episode.
I'll take 10%. No big deal.
Okay, so back at it, or because we really gnarled this whole episode, or this whole interview.
We've learned so much from Anton. It's fantastic. It's live TV. What are we doing? It's great.
All right.
Our listeners do not want us to be perfect. They want us to tell them the stories that we're reporting on this week, and Anton was on a roll.
Yeah, so to kind of just, I guess, pick up where we left off on it, I guess.
If we can remember that.
Yeah, we were talking about how to view your business as an enterprise, kind of just to build your enterprise beyond just being a band. You know, I think that's exactly what you kind of just answered it in that question. I think that you have to really look at what you're doing as an enterprise, and not so much as just trying to get my band on the streaming platforms or whatever your outlets are. Just think about everything that you can possibly do to maximize the longevity of your business.
Mm-hmm. In working, so we're gonna air out a debate that you and I are having about the new EP. I'm saying don't print CDs. You're on the fence, and Billy is print CDs.
Right.
So making my case for CDs, I can't tell you the last time I actually listened to a CD. Never, just don't do it. I have my phone. I'm connected to my music, Apple Music, and away I go. So talk me through the angst that you have of letting go.
I don't even think I have anything that plays CDs. I think my Blu-ray player is the only thing that plays CDs in my house.
Right. So and that's like most people, and I'm the same way. I have no way to listen to CDs, honestly. But I think a lot of the angst is just kind of what most of us go through when we're trying to make decisions that leave behind an antiquated technology, where we're just like, man, but it's so like just stitched into the fabric of what we do, that to just give it away or to just not do that anymore seems like a crazy thing to do. That being said, I do notice that CDs sell more than anything else at our shows. So I think that people want to leave with a physical representation of something in order to support the band, or just to have a keepsake for that night that's affordable, that's not a t-shirt or something like that they can do whatever they want with. And you and I were talking about some alternatives to that, which I think we can definitely explore that stuff as well. But I'm still kind of on the fence about abandoning the idea completely. Maybe not printing so much, as it is a high cost, but having 100 or 200 CDs at the release, I think is not a terrible idea. Have them signed and have people buy them like that, because I think it is kind of it's still leaving money on the table. At the point that we start printing them and realizing these just aren't selling anymore, then I would say this is no longer useful for us.
Yeah. I think the case that I'm trying to make to you, and also as a thought sort of leadership in the world of music, is there are alternatives to the value that you're providing.
Yeah.
And I think, so step back for a second and think of your craft as a product, your music as a product, and the delivery of that music. If there are technologies that provide a higher value for that delivery, then by all means charge into them. By all means adopt them as new ways of doing business.
Sure.
Because and look, I mean, I'm gonna use Insignia's experience. We're a software company that transitioned into a consulting company that then had a very high expense model that suddenly, for consulting, because of technology, is providing us a new way to provide this consulting at just as good a value, a lot less expense. Why are we not fully adopting that? And yes, we're going to leave behind certain things that we perceive as value, like walking into a showroom. And I use that same example as having a CD, because there's traditional value of having that thing in your hand, like you're saying, walking out with it. Or right. I'm going to pay this money to support the band when I could support the band and get better value.
Right.
And so I think in any product, in any way that you're evolving a small business and a small product, not a small product, but a product within a small business, you always have to be iterating on the value that you're providing, and letting go those things that sometimes are high expense, that you can provide a better value at a lower expense.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it all makes perfect sense. And I think that it's definitely something to consider moving forward. And we might end up adopting that idea for sure. I just think that we're still at a point right now that to say we're not printing CDs anymore, there's gonna be a lot of people walking up. They're like, well, we don't have CDs, but this is what we have. It's like, oh, I'm good, man. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And it's like, that's who I don't want to leave walking. I don't want to leave that money on the table.
It's scary. It's scary.
Yeah.
I think also, these are parts of our unexpected reality that we have right now. That we have to shift our way of thinking in ways that you were already starting to think about. Is this profitable? Is it not profitable? Now, given the situation, what does that new model look like? Is there a revenue stream in something that we didn't see before? Right. That now might be available. I think, what does it cost to print a CD?
Depends on how much you actually print. So it's a volume game. So yeah. If you print like 1,000 CDs, your cost goes down to let's say $2 a CD. Yeah. But if you're printing 500, that cost goes up to maybe $3 or $4 a CD.
Right. So your profit margin after you does that include any kind of art or anything like that?
No. So that's all. Usually, all that stuff's taken care of beforehand. Right. So if you want to kind of factor in all the costs of the recording cost and everything, and like just kind of factor that in to each unit. Yeah. That I don't know what that metric looks like, but just to get it printed with all that other stuff with already implied, then it's about $2 a CD, depending on how much you print.
Right. So then you're looking at what's your profit off each unit, and it could be very, very little, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, it depends on how many songs are on the album. You can raise the prices on you can do $15 CDs if you have like 10 songs on the record, you know.
Right,
So $15 on every $2 spent is a great margin, you know. So they're still viable in that sense, as far as I'm concerned. Not to say that the new model isn't something to adopt and move forward with, but maybe phase out the old one, not just, you know, leave it in the dirt completely, you know.
Since they're becoming cool again, what about doing them on, I'm not even kidding about this. What about doing them on cassette? Everybody's going and buying cassettes again. Is there?
Yeah,
have you not seen that?
What?
Yeah,
No.
I've seen that, and I think that's hilarious because
I
unlike
hate cassettes.
vinyl, which vinyl made a big comeback and hasn't really gone away.
Yeah.
Like there's a quality to the recording of vinyl that you're just not going to get on anything else. The quality of a tape is just terrible.
Awful.
That's just hipsters doing it for hipsters' sake. and I think that's a fad. I don't see how that's going to stick around for very long.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's. I watch a lot of documentaries about vinyl because over the last 5 or 6 years, I took my original vinyl collection from when I was a kid, which I didn't have very much left, but I started to build on it. And when I was in Pennsylvania last week, spent like $300 on new LPs, which was awesome. But
yeah,
actually old LPs. But no, I think there's and that's what a lot of collectors say. You know, everybody was trying to reproduce the sound of vinyl on CD, you know, and where did the cassette fit in there, you know, and why are they doing it again? But I think you're right. I think it's just like I want to walk around with my yellow Walkman and listen to a tape. Right,
and once you realize how inconvenient it is and how terrible the sound quality is, it's just not cool anymore. It's not cool.
I want to take the pencil and rewind the tape that eventually gets eaten by your tape player.
I used to have to do that.
Yeah. So when the thing that I was, you know, this is where, you know, as I've moved through life and you reach a pinnacle of new technology, right? And then you cross that threshold of from a tape to a CD where I could go, I want to listen to track 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's amazing. Where in a tape, it's like fast forward.
Right.
Nope, not there yet.
And every time you fast forward, you're ruining that tape just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And then it breaks, and you had your mixtape, and it had all your great songs on it.
And you had to like wait, and you had to like record it right from the radio and like wait for it to like.
No way I go back to a tape.
Exactly. It is. Tapes are. That's not making a comeback, and if it does, I'm not participating in its comeback. I'll tell you that.
It was last year. My guy, who's my vinyl dealer, he sets up his little stand on 47 or 41st and 7th Avenue, and he's got an amazing vinyl collection. He's got a little store out in Jersey, but all of a sudden he has this box of cassettes, and I was like, "What on earth?" He was like, "There's a very small but very vehement group of people who are buying cassettes."
Oh,
and I'm like, gosh. I'll take Quiet Riot Metal Health on cassette. Damn right I will.
Yeah, Quiet Riot.
$5 just to have it? Yes.
Just to have it.
Yeah.
Metal Health on the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to tell a story about cassettes. So in the it had to be 83 or 84 because it was before we moved to Florida. The Wilsons show up in the Wilson wagon, which was the paneled Lincoln Plymouth or whatever the hell that vehicle was.
Family truckster.
The truckster, terrible green, right? Wood paneling along the side. The Wilsons show up to pick me up to take me back to Florida with them. And Mark jumps out, my cousin Mark jumps out of the car. And he's got this thing in his ear, and it looks like he has a little ribbon on in this ear, and he's got this little tiny thing in his hand. I'm like, what in the world is that? And he's like, here. And it's right out of the Back to the Future kind of, and he put on Journey, Separate Ways. And I'm like, what's happening? I mean, it was right out of the movie. I literally was a little kid going, this is amazing, yelling and screaming, and they're like, shut up, so don't talk so loud. So I go to Florida, I get introduced to Walkmans, and I think it's awesome. I come home, and I'm gonna develop a tape, right? And I'm gonna make a tape. And so I get the radio and a cassette recorder and put them next to each other and recorded Michael Jackson's Thriller, right? On the radio. trying to get it just perfect to hit it before, as the DJ stops talking. It's like, shut up, stop talking now. And I was so proud of having captured that song on tape. The next time around, the Wilsons come around, I'm like, Mark, you got to listen to this. He's like, this is horrible. What did you do? I was like, I got it off the radio.
Oh yeah.
It's such an exciting technology when you figure out about that when you're younger too. You know, it's crazy.
Never go back to tapes. It's like going back to 8 tracks or something. That's
it's terrible.
That's insane.
But at least 8 tracks, you could fast forward. You click that little thing, and it would go like, it wasn't always consistent. It could be like in the middle of a song, but at least you could click it and it would go somewhere forward, as opposed to cassettes, which is like. I ruined 2 copies of Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz, because of fast forward rewinding, because I wanted to hear Mr. Crowley again over and over and over.
Oh my God, I love that song so much.
And I kept rewinding, and then finally I gave it back to my brother, and he's like, "It was." I was like, "You ruined it." I was like, I had to go to National Record Mart and buy him a new copy of Blizzard of Oz.
That's awesome.
I don't know.
My heavy metal roots.
I don't know if we have any like much more time, but I want to give like kind of a little anecdote about since this kind of whole podcast is about being unintentional, unexpected entrepreneur. That's kind of my exact story with how I started a band and became like in doing what I do. You know, when I first started playing music, I never wanted to be in a band. I just wanted to play music for the sake of being in a band. And when then I started playing more, and I realized, okay, well, I do want to be in a band. And then I just want to join the band as a guitar player and maybe write a couple songs here and there, but I didn't want to be like the main guy. And so when I realized I wasn't able to just join a band because I wasn't really a strong enough guitar player on my own, I had to like be doing, you know, like writing songs and whatever. So I realized, okay, well, I have to start my own band. But I don't want to be the front person. I don't want to sing. And then it was like, okay, well, you can't find a reliable singer, so you're gonna have to learn how to sing. And that's okay. We'll learn how to sing. I could not hold a note when I first started singing. It was terrible. I did all kinds of YouTube videos and all kinds of exercises on my own. Got passable. Realized, okay, you need vocal lessons if you're gonna do this for real. Took a couple of vocal lessons, and now I'm a passable singer. I'd say at this point. And then once I started running the band, you know, the idea of this idea of a band leader, you know, that didn't really resonate with me. Didn't really want to do that. And then I realized, okay, well, somebody has to take the reins here, and nobody else is going to do it, so you're going to have to do it. So I started doing that, and then I joined that first band. Kind of broke up, and then I, you know, unintentionally joined another band, and I was just a guitar player there. Joined another band with the Rockin Jake Band, just a guitar player for that band. Got that experience of being a side guy, and then started my own band with the perspective of what it means to be a side guy and what the expectations are from a side guy's perspective. And so I went in full force going, okay, I'm going to be the best band leader I possibly can be. And with that, it's like, okay, well, you start to realize, well, this is really just a business, and this is really just, you know, building an enterprise. So what's the most effective way to do that, which is where I'm at today, which obviously still writing and still creating and still being a musician is number one always for me. But just realizing that, you know, you're also running a business and starting to think like a business person. And from when I was 14 years old, just trying to, I don't know, play guitar in my room to where I'm at right now, just the whole thing was completely unexpected, you know.
That's awesome.
What a great thing, man. Those of us who've gotten it to live my rock and roll dreams every now and again with the Wilson Band down in Florida. But boy, it's. I always said I would forsake my friends and family if I could go be the 5th member of Bon Jovi. I remember when I was younger, I was just like, I swear to God, I will just forsake everybody. I just want to go out with Bon Jovi. Don't care. I will sell my soul for rock and roll.
Bro, that would be an amazing band to be a part of. It'd be so much fun.
At the time, in like the early 90s, oh my God.
Yeah, they're like one of the biggest bands in the world, man. It would have been amazing. That's the dream, man. That's the dream that everyone's going for.
I'll play rhythm guitar behind Richie. Richie never has a rhythm guitarist. I'll play all the chords. I got it.
So I'd be the best gig in the world. Be rhythm guitar for Bon Jovi.
Honestly.
Well, Anton, you bring up an awesome point about building a business, providing leadership that I've always used as sort of a core tenet to in my own endeavors is there isn't a job within Insignia that I haven't done. Right. And no, I don't write SQL code. I did write HTML. I did write JavaScript. I did have to build pages, and I did write code, so I understand it from that perspective. I'm not an accountant, but I ran QuickBooks. I did the billing. I did all. So there isn't a job I haven't done in our company. And anytime we start something new, I'm the first person to master that. So when we started our consulting, I started the consulting. I was consulting first. And so that's a huge lesson that you piece together as you are coming along. There, a lot of entrepreneurs think, well, I'm just going to be the CEO, and I'll just start off as the CEO, and I'll go find all the people that I need to do all the other things that I need done, and I'll just tell everybody what to do. And those make the worst entrepreneurs, the worst CEOs, because they don't know. They haven't started from the ground up and done every job along the way.
Right. Doesn't make for a very empathetic person. Like, you're not really taking into account different perspectives and what it means to be on those time crunches, and what the expectations actually are being in that scenario. So I think that if you're going into this, whether it's starting a business or starting a band or whatever it might be, don't shy away from doing things that you're not comfortable doing. Because I can tell you right now, when I was growing up, I was the shyest kid, hiding behind my parents. Like, when I was going to meet people, the worst stage fright. I still have stage fright to this day. It gets, especially when we're doing like a ticketed show at a festival or something, I have the worst stage fright. But you have to take yourself out of those comfort zones and know that if you really want to do it, you'll do it. You'll figure out a way to do it. You might not be the best at it, but at the point where you get yourself in a situation where you can outsource that stuff, you'll at least have a better understanding of what it takes to do that, So.
Yeah. Awesome. Mr. Soki, anything else?
Very much like our talk with Kara. It's such a closely tied in thing to what I do. I think any of us who are in live entertainment, I mean, we have some new challenges, and I think as long as people like Kara and Anton, and to our extent, Dave and I, keep talking about ideas and come up with new ideas, there's going to be so much creativity that comes out of all this, and I really believe that. And I believe also in the music business, very much like in the television, film, theater business, the amount of content that's going to come out of this is going to be absolutely extraordinary. I can't wait to hear all the songs that are going to be written, all the new technology, the plays and the movies and television shows that get written. It's going to be a wave, as Rich Blanche called it. It's the new Renaissance, and it always happens out of these things. So I wish you all the luck in the world, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And shout out to Kara and Blue Jay Listening Room. Be sure to go support them. She's a great friend of mine. She was on our podcast, Bottom of the Bill. You can go back and watch that on Patreon, by the way. Nice. And at Side Hustle the Band, so patreon.com/Side Hustle the Band. You can follow us on all the outlets at whatever the social media is /Side Hustle the Band. So, keep up with what we got going on.
Perfect. You plugged it. I was going to plug it for you. This shows how much he's grown. I can remember when we first started working together, he'd be on stage and I'd be like, tell him about the band website. And he was like, wait, what? I tell him about the band website from the stage? It's like, yes.
Yeah.
So good job. Excellent work. All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining in for our episode. Our 10th episode, which we're going to say all along, 10th episode. Go out, subscribe, find us on YouTube, on your podcast platforms, Toilet Paper, Fortune Cookie, a podcast.
Yes.
And next episode will be sometime in July. Join us for the live recaps. I think it's July 3rd. No, that's a recap. July 6th.
Stay tuned.
We'll figure it out before then. All right. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much.
Later, guys.
Bye. Here's our theme. Hey.
I love this song.
It's a good song.